Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I sent, was it earlier this week? It feels like forever ago already. This time doesn't exist anymore. But it was, earlier this week, I sent a message to the teacher's email, but I wanted to share it all with you, anyone who wasn't on that email, already. But I had a very vivid, very powerful dream relating to events that are taking place on the earth now, I believe. And both Janice and Levon had similar dreams, and I think it's all related to sort of what's happening spiritually in that we may not be yet publicly or sort of obviously aware of, but that will result in some major shifts in the way society and the world work. And I think these things are going to take place very, very soon. So as far as what very, very soon means, I believe it's in this year. And I don't know exactly when, but as I explained the dream, maybe we can all come to an understanding of what time frame this might be, although time frame is not necessarily important. But again, I do believe this is going to be unexpected and going to be soon. But anyway, I've had a number of dreams similar to this one, not in terms of subject matter, but in terms of the way that the dream feels. Because when we sleep, we're doing a lot of different things, and the better we can get at sort of recognizing the different qualities between, or the different qualities that make each sort of dream-like experience distinct, we can better accurately identify what it is that we were doing while sleeping, whether or not we're just having a normal quote-unquote dream where it's something internally that we're working out, or whether we are receiving messages, or whether or not we are doing things and remembering things that we have done in what you would call astral or other realms of reality. But this dream had a very immediate and prophetic feeling, in the sense that it was relating to things that were imminent and very possible, and things that I think are going to happen very soon. So, in the dream itself, I remember being in it was like a very crowded store, kind of like a Target, and much more crowded than normal. And that leads me to believe that, in terms of time frame, this may have something to do with like whenever the sort of quarantine ends officially, or when people start to go out for the first time again after all this. But it could also be symbolic of something else. In any case, I was in a very crowded store, and I was doing something on my phone, just something mundane anyway, and the sort of overall atmosphere in the store was that people were very pressed to get whatever they needed before other people got it. So it was a little bit chaotic in the store. And as I was checking my phone, doing whatever I needed to do, a message came over the sort of PA system in the store, and it overtook and began to override the normal sort of store music or whatever the store announcements were. And the message stated that humanity had been
Audrey's coming on.
Oh, okay. I'm hearing a lot of like wind or something almost.
I had the volume up too loud. It's down now.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. But the message came over the PA system in the store, and it was at first it was very staticky, like it was a bad connection, and it seemed to me in the dream that it was like the store was resisting it. But then it became much more clear, and the message began to explain to everyone in the store who at this point had stopped doing whatever they were doing and were paying attention to it. The message began to explain that Earth had been under siege and been taken over by sort of very negative being thoughts and attitudes. But in the dream, it felt like beings in the literal sense. But I believe it relates to all those things. That Earth had been taken over by these very negative entities, and that it was in the process of being freed, and in fact was very close to being freed, and had been freed. And this was like a very, very shocking thing to everyone in the store, because it was like in the midst of this sort of somewhat chaotic, otherwise mundane, normal activity, it was something completely unexpected and completely alien to normal experience. And alien is probably not the best word, but it was completely something that people did not have a framework for understanding and took them by surprise. So anyway, this message is being played over the store, and everyone is sort of looking up and wondering how this can be true. And the message keeps getting clearer and clearer. Then the next thing I know, I am either looking up directly into space at night, or I'm floating in space. I believe it's more so I was floating in space. And it was the same kind of people who were sending the message, only it was much more clear and it was more detailed. So while I was floating in space, I saw before me it looked like topographical maps sort of floating in a line in space. So if you can imagine a few sort of maps just floating, hanging in the air in front of me. But I got the impression and received the message that these were like different options we could choose from. And I think the we means society and people who have the ability to sort of direct our actions as a result of this revelation. It's options we could choose from to improve the health of the earth and society and people overall as a result of our having been freed from whatever this sort of negative influence was. And I got to observe in detail some of the maps, which took the form of you can think of it like Legos or something like that in my mind, which itself was sort of a symbolic representation. But I could tell that each one of them had many different components. Each one of the maps or plans that they represented had many different components, and they were all sort of well put together. In other words, it seemed like people had been working on them for a long time, and they were sort of revealing these possibilities now, finally, that we had the chance to actually do them. So after seeing these options and floating in space, I returned to the store, and I was extremely happy. I was running around yelling like, it's finally happening, I can't believe it. And I ran out of the store just elated. But as soon as I got out of the store, I realized that I was pretty much the only one that was happy. I think I remember in the dream seeing like one or two people in the vicinity that were also in a good mood. But most people were extremely depressed and extremely shocked. And people were sitting on the street, just wherever they were, they just basically just collapsed and were holding their head in their hands and things like that. Because I got the impression that the news was simply too much. People did not have a framework for understanding any of the things that everything else in their life just stopped. And it was simply too much to process for them to do anything else but sit there and try to understand it. So I got the impression that it was going to be my responsibility and anyone else who was sort of already aware of these kinds of things to help people readjust to the new understanding of the world that was just made aware, so they were made aware of. And so I started walking down the street because I felt like I needed to follow somebody. And I was seeing people just sort of sitting everywhere. But there were also some people up still doing things that they needed to do. And I remember following someone to a drugstore, and inside the drugstore, it was kind of chaotic, like the Target I just came from. There were people kind of pushing and shoving, trying to get what they needed. Almost as if this is the one sort of thing that would still make you want to continue on with the day-to-day kind of stuff is, needing to be healthy. But the person I ended up following and felt like I needed to follow in the dream turned out to be Spider-Man, which that symbol to me that's always been my favorite superhero. So that symbol to me meant that whoever it was or the person or entity I was following was like a heroic person or a group of people who had done some heroic things, probably related to helping free the earth and our consciousness from this sort of negative mindset and influence. But because people were so desperate to get what they needed in the drugstore and just do shots outside of the drugstore, no one recognized the sort of heroism of this person or group of people. And in the drugstore, Spider-Man was trying to get his medicine just like everybody else. But nobody cared it was Spider-Man, so they were pushing and shoving him, and they were like, all that kind of stuff. But I remember finally Spider-Man got his medicine, and he pointed at me, and he was like, he told the drugstore operator, or person behind the counter, that I would pay for Spider-Man's medicine. And he was basically like, this guy will pay for it, thanks. And I was shocked that he needed me to do that. But I was perfectly willing to do that. And to me, that just speaks to whatever that sort of heroic person or group of people did, took so much energy and resources out of them that they were unable to sustain themselves in the way that they normally would be able to, and so they needed other people to help. It's the impression that they gave me. But I was perfectly fine with doing that, and then right after that sequence, I woke up. So this was, and I basically wrote all of it down as soon as I woke up and sent the email out not long after. Because this dream, it didn't come out of nowhere, but it came at just the right time and in the right way to let me know that it was not sort of a normal, me working out something internally or et cetera. It felt like I was receiving something that I needed to share, and so I did. But that was the dream, and I believe those things are going to happen. I don't know when exactly, and I don't know exactly what form, but I believe there's going to be some sort of major shift in the way we think about the world. I'm not sure I could describe the impact, but there's no going back to normal is basically what this means. And I think this period while we're all under quarantine is when a lot of this, whatever eventually leads up to this announcement or this sort of impact on people and society as a whole, the things that are being set up for that announcement are happening now. So whatever is happening during this period while we're in quarantine. There's something going on behind the scenes on the global stage that I think we will be made aware of, and we'll just have to see as to when exactly that will happen and how it happens. But the impact is the overall thing I took away from the dream, as well as the idea that there are As crazy as it sounds, I think President Trump, and every time I say that phrase, it kind of makes me think I'm in the Matrix, but President Trump is 100% here for a reason, and it's related to, I think, what is going on, because Trump is not part of the club. He's terrible in other ways, but he's not as terrible as the club, if you get what I mean. And so, unfortunately, we'll have to deal with him until all this comes to whatever end it's coming to. I sort of don't think Joe Biden should be president. And it pains me to say that. I don't know if I'm willing to vote for Trump, but, and not that I'm saying you all should vote for Trump. You please make your own decision, of course, but I think it all has to do with what's going on, and I don't know exactly what that is, but there's something going on, and we're going to be made aware of it when it's finished. That's my head.
I agree with you, Nick.
Made aware of it when?
Audrey asked a question just a moment. Can you hear her?
Not really. Hang on,
Ask it again, Audrey.
We're going to be made aware of it when?
Oh, okay, I heard that. I don't know exactly when, but it's soon. And of course that means all kinds of things, but like soon and unexpectedly. And I believe it's related to either the end of this quarantine or at some point during it. And I don't think this quarantine is going to last much longer than the summer. And it could be before then too. But we'll see. But I think it's very soon.
Nick, a lot of the first part of your dream sound a lot like what was happening when we first got started with this coronavirus thing. And everybody's in the store buying up every single thing, even perishable stuff, toilet tissue, stuff that just wasn't even necessary to have right now. Like, it's just panic going on. My son even called me, Mom, I don't know what's going on, but this virus thing, I guess, got people panicking. I can't find no tissue anywhere.
Yeah.
And that was about 2 weeks into the tissue running out. And that's pretty much sound like the beginning of your dream, what we're already into right now. And now we're home, pressing this isolation, and people are going through this state of depression and feeling some kind of way. I have my days in and out. One day I wake up, I'm good, we're home, we're safe, and then some days it's like, okay.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like we're already into that aspect of your dream with much more to come other than just coming out of the shutdown.
Yeah. That does resonate with me. I didn't even think about the first part of the dream being something that we may have already gone through, or still sort of are in, like that little panic buying. Yeah.
Right.
When you said that you didn't think that you didn't know whether you could vote for Trump or not, well, you don't have to. We did the first time, and look what happened. It's going to be how it's supposed to be anyway. Now, do I feel like that he should be re-elected? Honestly, it doesn't matter one way or the other, as long as everything is fulfilled. It doesn't bother me, as it bothers some other people with whom I've spoken. However, I'm wanting to see if Janice LaVon is on.
Yes.
Yes, which one?
LaVon,
LaVon, would you share yours also, please?
The dream I had,
Yes, ma'am.
it was a dream where I was out in the street. I know other people who were out in the street, and we were remember that we were out there, and while we were helping, I noticed that I saw these big bursts of things happening, and it scared me because I thought people were dying by bursting, but it was really they were bursting out of their skin. And it kind of like scared me. It bothered me because I'm like, this is impossible. This can't happen. And so it's not that I ran away from it, but I was just like trying to keep going, thinking I was supposed to avoid it. But it kept happening. And so I knew after it happened, people were okay. They were better. They were safe, but I don't know really from what. And shortly after that, I woke up. But I woke up. Well, I did wake up. I was a little. It just bothered me, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. I couldn't understand it. I just felt like there was chaos going on, and it bothered me for about a day or two, and then I thought, you know what, it's okay. That's it. But they weren't happy about it.
Okay. So you said it was actually, as in the process, there was a happy aura around it?
Yes. But the process of it was extremely disturbing.
Yeah.
I think when I this is Barbara, when I read what you wrote, Lavon, it just made me think about the process of the caterpillar and metamorphosis. That, you know, the cocoon doesn't look very good. The caterpillar had to, when the butterfly's ready to come out, it really has to struggle to get out. But that the caterpillar had morphed into something of beauty, a different kind of beauty.
Yeah. I see that after I read your email, and then after I read it, I was like, okay, that gave me an understanding, and I agreed with the fact of, okay, afterwards, even though I didn't understand it, there was goodness. People were happier, things were better. And so, yeah, like you said, after the caterpillar, the butterfly is a beautiful creation.
Yes, that's the impression it gives me as well. It's like people coming out of their skin is like shedding old dead stuff. But it's kind of a gruesome process.
Yeah.
If Janice is not on, I can maybe read her email.
I think that Lavon, you and Nick had pretty much the same dream in different ways. The thing that struck me the most about it is that all of them came at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is really unusual in terms of the time frame and the nature of the dreams. To me, just to talk about those and understand them is enough. Because honestly, when I think about it in relationship to what's going on, I hear what do I hear? Peace. I think it's a message saying that we are not to grow weary and stay the course. Also that we are close to this change that we've sought so desperately. the idea of the whole world was changing at the same time is something that we thought about, but had no clue as to what it would feel like. And when I read the dreams, and then I read these articles about what Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz said. Then I read the dreams again, and I saw the need for such a change, especially the metamorphosis and the heroic actions that must be taken in order for these changes to take place. I would like to see if there are any questions or any comments about the dreams or anything else for that matter.
To me, this is Barbara, Nicholas's dream and Lavon's dream in that context, this reminds me that the people that Nick spoke of who could not fathom what was going on, they knew something had happened. Just spoke of this beginning change in consciousness, in a sense. In other words, everything that they knew from their own human minds had totally changed, and they were in the process of trying to wrap their minds around what this new change is, this new consciousness. Lavon talked about, it was like Lavon's dream was a physical representation, literally bursting out of her skin, to Nick's dream of a spiritual representation of a change in thinking and consciousness. I don't know how else to say that.
Anyone else?
I feel like it was kind of like in the day or two after I had the dream, it was like for me on a day-to-day level, it was like a return to straight normal mundaneness. I had more work to do that this week. I had it was kind of like after the huge influx of energy from the dream, it went right back down, but not in a negative way. Just like the normalness of my week contrasted greatly with the energy of the dream, and it just made me feel like within the sort of state of normalcy and not thinking about anything like that, that's when it's probably going to happen. So
that also is a reminder of what the Bible talked about when it says that, when things happen, people will be doing their mundane things. The difference is that there are going to be people like us who expect something to happen and won't be totally surprised. But there are going to be other people, like the people that you talked about in your dream, who are almost shell-shocked, didn't know what to do, didn't know what to think, depressed, who were doing their mundane things, and when whatever happens, it's going to catch them totally off guard.
Yep.
Okay, is there anything else you would like to add, or are there any questions that you have in regards to anything this week, or last week for that matter?
This is Barbara again. My question is in relation to what Nick and Levon and Denise shared. What is our role in terms of being helpful in the transition for people and humanity?
I see it as being a conduit through which the energy of change can travel. Because in order for changes to happen in this world, there has to be, as the Bible says, a type of item standing in the gap, a bridge of sorts that binds the two worlds, across which the energy flows for change. And I also think that the three dreams gave us a new sense of how important it is for us to pay attention to what's going on and be aware of what appears to be every little detail about what's going on, so that not only will we not miss it, but we will know when the change is taking place.
So it's staying the course of speaking balance and calmness and peace and into the macro. Is doing the same thing that we've been doing, which helped to contribute to this change.
Yes.
So continuing to do that gives people something to pull from the macro when they really do settle down and begin to embrace this newness of whatever it is.
Yes, and one of the things that struck me is the idea of how everyone is concerned about how the brown and black persons, African Americans and brown people, are being adversely affected by this virus. The concerns there, and also the unveiling or the revealing rather of the true nature of some people's hearts. Like when Dr. Oz said that it's okay to sacrifice 10% of school kids if that's what it takes to open the country back up. I mean, 1 million plus kids is what he's saying. And to think about when Dr. Phil said that X number of people, 480,000 people died from whatever during the course of the year. So we don't shut things down for that. So why are we doing it for this? Those kinds of things. To be aware of those kinds of statements, because I think these are the type of statements, these are the type of attitudes that has brought us to this place where we are now. And that place is more of an not understanding, more of an awareness of how evil these policies have been, not just nation but in this world. The scripture says that the sun shines on the just as well as the unjust. No, I'm sorry. It says the sun shines on the what is it? Righteous.
I think.
What is it? Go ahead.
I think the issue, the essence is just and unjust. Thing.
Well, the thing that I know what it is. It says the sun shines on the good and the evil, and the rains on the just and unjust. What I saw in that is the sun shines on the good and the evil, the ripe and the unripened. So what I take from that is when we look at people like Donald Trump and the attitudes of those who seemingly don't even care. These are simply people who are unripened. And if the sun shines on the ripe and the unripened, then there is an opportunity for them to be ripened through the changes that's taking place. However, I don't see people like Mitch McConnell being ripened. I see them being rotten, allowed to rotten and not down the vine. I don't see ripeness there at all. I believe that people like with those kinds of attitudes has gone beyond ripeness to a place of being rotten. Any comments about that?
This is Audrey. I have a question. The fact that African Americans are being disproportionately affected by this, and I kind of wonder why that is, because I mean, we've always been disproportionately affected by everything, but that hasn't made a lot of difference in the past. So why is that happening now? And is it meant to be a sacrifice that creates some good?
Yeah, I believe so, because if you think about it, as you said, we have been disproportionately affected by several things in the past, which resulted in sacrifices that changed nothing. However, I think that these are the sacrifices that changes everything. And if the question arises, why the sacrifice? Well, first of all, no one really has ever paid any attention to us or the sufferings that we have had to endure. But now it appears as though there is a group of people who have the power to make the changes, who are paying attention to it. What I mean by that is that we have said over and over again that if racism is to be ended, it's going to have to be ended by those who perpetuate it. And now what we're seeing is not so much as a quote-unquote civil rights leadership that's affecting this change. It is the talking heads on the different news shows, as well as people who are in policy-making positions, who are pushing this type of change. Not to mention the fact that there are younger people who are in governmental positions, i.e., the House of Representatives, who have made it their life's work to bring about these changes. In relationship to that and what Nick said about Joe Biden, I am not sure he's going to get the nomination anyway, because I don't see him being an agent of change at all. However, I do see Donald Trump being more of an agent of change than Joe Biden could ever think to be. So, I hope to be, I should say. Yeah, hope to be. I hope that helped you, Audrey.
From a different perspective, I agree with what you're saying. But I see these deaths as seeds being planted, in a sense. So the deaths will not be in vain because of what you say, the fruit of what's going to occur as a result of all of these seeds of African Americans who are dying in this COVID episode being planted, and the light that's being shared in the universe, because of that.
I can see that, Barbara Jean.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
something that we always have to we always have to die for something. That we seemingly are the ones who have to endure the greatest amount of suffering in order for change to take place.
It's also seemingly our destiny. You know, it's seemingly our part to play toward mankind understanding its role in relationship to the Creator.